killed by distance. Tales of a relationship with an immigrant worker after having my heart ripped to shreds by an immigrant worker with whom we had worked for an NGO in northern Uganda. I was quite skeptical on exploring any romantic adventures. Catherine had joined the Extend a Hand program as a social worker from California. I would later learn that she was doing her master's as a gender specialist at a university that she mentioned a handful of times, although I struggle to remember it. We had. Exactly 8 months later, Catherine returned to the United States. To this day, I still find it hard to open that memory drawer to try and describe the indescribable feeling, the overflow of emotions that characterized our goodbyes the morning of her departure. We had sleeplessly spent the night together, talking about what felt like a Bible of things the Old Testament summarized and how she had found life in Uganda, the people, the culture, and everything else in comparison to what she was accustomed to in the U.S. The New Testament largely revolved around how we were going to miss each other's company, how we would stay in touch, noting the time difference, the tight schedule that awaited her back home as a working student. We discussed the possibility of me moving to the U.S. so we can forge a life together. But 2 months after her return, we had started to feel our communication started to dwindle, our spark beginning to burn out like a pencil-thin white candle on a night without power. Our video calls started to fall far between. She was preparing for exams, but also working 2 jobs at the same time. Back home, I was also trying to grind it out with a new highly demanding job with a startup that offered me a safe haven following the expiration of my contract with the NGO. To cut the long story short, 6 months down the road, Catherine braved up and dropped what felt like a bomb. She lightly asked for some space, as though she was a player asking for a timeout in a pickup basketball game. It felt like a polite way of saying, "It's not you, it's me." During that long call on a Sunday mid-morning, we both acknowledged the difficulty in having to sustain a long-distance relationship, the communication that was starting to feel scanty at best amidst the focus we were all dedicating to our respective careers. Seen in what came off as diluted emotions, in some part, our engagement started to feel like a mere fulfillment of an obligation, a responsibility that we owed to one another. Knowing too well that this step often ends up in a total breakup, I could feel the cracks start to develop in my heart and the adrenaline rush that characterized my body. Standing outside, with one of my shoulders leaning against the wall, face down, I felt my boxers start to gently slide down, as if I had lost some weight in a heartbeat. Speaking with what sounded like a choking voice, although I don't recall myself shading a tear. At least not during the call. I try to make my case, one motion at a time, citing examples, both from movies and one in real life, how we could still keep the candle burning without having to dim it ourselves. Although she didn't say it specifically, she seemed to suggest that we would resume this thing we were having after she was done with school. That if the spark was still there, we would explore our romantic possibilities for the future. But I also knew that after her current semester, it would be another 6 months to endure through before she would finish school. For love is patient, and hence worth the wait. I knew I could do the time, like a petty one-time thief serving a sentence in a county jail. Nonetheless, it also felt in some way that I was going to string myself along with false hope that by the end of school everything would be as we had hoped. Before ending that long phone call, we had agreed to maintain a reasonable level of communication, although just as friends, as a way of keeping up with one another as we both wait. Every once in a while, we would revisit our fantasies, flirt a little, and reminisce about certain special moments during our time in northern Uganda. But as time went by, I gradually felt the last thread that was holding the 2 chambers of our hearts fall away. It felt like a cut with a steak knife. It hurt more than you can imagine. Every time I revisited some of our chats, I felt overrun by emotions. I couldn't help it but feel that things were never going to be the same again between me and Catherine. We were now a living testimony of the saying that out of sight is out of mind. Well, she wasn't for me, but I sensed that it was true for her. After many months, I started to tell myself that perhaps it was time to move on even though I didn't feel ready. I decided that if I was to entertain anything romantic, it was going to be casual and nothing more, rendering myself emotionally bankrupt to explore any endeavors. Hi everyone, this is Robert K. Circles. Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast today. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen. I hope you enjoyed this story. If you did, I'd be incredibly grateful if you could take a moment to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any future episodes. Give us a like on your favorite podcast platform. Leave a comment letting us know what you thought. We love hearing your feedback. And if you know someone who might enjoy the show, please share it with them. Your support means the world to me and helps us reach more listeners. Thanks again for being a part of the Robert K. Circles community. Until next time, take care.